In a modest sunlit home on a quiet street, 10-year-old Ethan Lawson awoke to the gentle hum of early morning. The light filtered softly through faded curtains as he sat cross-legged on his small, neatly made bed. Clutched in his hands was his treasured, well-worn notebook, its cover decorated with a motley array of stickers, hearts, stars, and a faded image of a stethoscope. Each mark on those pages told the story of a dream far larger than his tender years, the dream to heal, to care, and to become a doctor. Ethan's fascination with medicine had been nurtured at home. His mother, Rebecca, a compassionate, tireless nurse, returned every evening from the hospital with stories that painted vivid images of hope and healing. A doctor isn't merely someone who prescribes medicine, she would say, her eyes alight with a quiet wisdom. A doctor understands the language of the heart and listens to the unspoken stories of those who suffer. Ethan, with his bright eyes and earnest heart, absorbed every word as if it were a precious secret. He meticulously copied diagrams of human organs into his notebook, labeling each with painstaking care, dreaming of the day he could one day help mend broken lives. At school, his passion set him apart. In classes where other children played, Ethan dove into textbooks, his curiosity ignited by every lesson in biology and anatomy. During career day, he stood proudly before his classmates, unveiling a handmade poster of the human body. With a confident smile he declared, "One day, I'm going to be a surgeon and save lives, maybe even yours." The room burst into applause, and from the back of the class, Rebecca's heart swelled with pride. Her son, so full of promise, had already taken his first steps on the path to greatness. Evenings in the Lawson household were a blend of simple routine and whispered dreams. Over dinner, while the aroma of home-cooked food mingled with the day's tiredness, Ethan would excitedly recount the new things he had learned. His notebook lay open on the table, its pages a mosaic of dreams, formulas, and sketches of the human heart. "One day, I will help people live longer and happier lives," he had boldly written on the first page, a promise that pulsed with youthful determination.
Yet, begint ze vibrant hoop lezen onknovable hand of fate.
The universe, indifferent yet mysterious, had plans that would test Ethan's fragile spirit. Even as he filled his days with visions of a future where he healed and nurtured, subtle signs began to hint that life, as he knew it, might soon change. Unbeknownst to Ethan, the dreams penned in his notebook would soon be confronted by the stark challenges of reality. And so, in that quiet home, with morning light dancing across hopeful pages, the journey of a dreamer was about to take an unexpected turn. Ethan's routine of discovery and wonder was abruptly disrupted one crisp autumn afternoon. What had started as a mild, nagging headache after a long study session slowly deepened into an ominous pain. At first, he dismissed the discomfort as the natural consequence of spending too much time buried in textbooks. But as days slipped into weeks, the headaches returned with increased severity, each one accompanied by a wave of dizziness and blurred vision. At school, his teachers began to notice subtle changes. Mr. Daniels, his kindly science teacher, observed Ethan's once bright eyes now frequently squinting as if trying to see a distant storm on the classroom ceiling. One morning, while explaining the intricacies of the circulatory system, Ethan clutched his temples so hard that his pencil slipped from his grasp. Concern etched on Mr. Daniels' face as he approached. "Ethan, are you feeling all right?" he inquired, his tone laced with genuine worry. Ethan mustered a small smile and mumbled, "I'm fine, sir," yet the pallor on his cheeks told another story. At home that evening, Rebecca noticed her son's sluggish movements and the way his gaze seemed unfocused. Sitting at the kitchen table, Ethan attempted to complete his homework, but his hand trembled and his words slurred slightly. Rebecca's maternal intuition, honed over years of caring for others, sensed that something was deeply amiss. After dinner, with gentle insistence, she sat beside him and asked softly, "Honey, are you sure you're all right?" Ethan nodded, but the worry in her eyes deepened as she observed the shadows under his eyes and the quiet fatigue that clung to him. The turning point came during a brisk walk home from school. As Ethan and Rebecca strolled along a leaf-strewn sidewalk, a sudden wave of vertigo overtook him. Rebecca's arms instinctively wrapped around him as the world spun into a blur. In that moment, the laughter of children playing in the park and the rustle of autumn leaves faded into a distant hum. They reached a nearby clinic where doctors immediately took him in for evaluation. The sterile corridors of the local hospital, bathed in harsh fluorescent light, became the backdrop for Ethan's first real encounter with a mystery his young mind could scarcely understand. Tests were ordered, a battery of blood work, neurological assessments, and an MRI. Hours slipped by as Rebecca sat vigil by her son's bedside, holding his small hand and praying silently for answers. The rhythmic beeping of machines underscored the urgency of the situation. In the midst of uncertainty, Ethan's resilient spirit shone through. Even as he lay on a crisp white hospital sheet, his voice, though weak, was steady when he asked, "What's the next step, doctor? How do we fight this?" His question, so simple yet laden with the weight of impending trials, echoed in the quiet room. It was a moment of both courage and vulnerability, a child determined to understand and overcome, even as his body signaled that something was gravely wrong. The signs had become undeniable. Behind the clinical tests and worried glances lay a dark truth that would soon change everything. As the hours ticked by, Rebecca's heart pounded in sync with the beeping monitors, each pulse a reminder that fate was drawing near. In that sterile room, amid whispered reassurances and the hum of machinery, Ethan's life began a journey down a path none could have foreseen, a journey that would test the limits of hope, courage, and the human spirit. In the cold, impersonal light of the radiology suite, the results of Ethan's tests were finally laid out like an ominous roadmap. The doctor, Dr. Harris, whose kind eyes belied the gravity of his news, sat beside Rebecca in a quiet consultation room. The air felt thick, as if holding its breath before the inevitable storm of emotions. Dr. Harris's voice, gentle yet unyielding, broke the silence. "Ethan has a rare, aggressive brain tumor." Those words crashed over Rebecca like a tidal wave. For a mother who had spent her life nurturing others in the hospital corridors, this was a blow she could hardly fathom. She clutched Ethan's hand as though her grip alone could ward off the impending darkness. In that moment, time seemed to slow, each heartbeat a drum of sorrow and disbelief. Ethan, though barely a teenager, met the diagnosis with a quiet resolve. With eyes that shimmered with determination, he whispered, "I'm still going to be a doctor one day." Rebecca's tears blurred her vision as she gently caressed his hair. "And you will be, sweetheart," she promised, though every fiber of her being screamed in protest. The days that followed were a blur of hospital visits, endless tests, and whispered conversations in sterile hallways. Chemotherapy sessions began, each one sapping a little more of Ethan's strength. The once vibrant curls that framed his face began to fall out in soft clumps, leaving behind a fragile reminder of the boy he once was. Even as his physical body weakened, Ethan's mind remained as sharp as ever. In between the long hours of treatment and the quiet moments of pain, he continued to ask questions. "Dr. Harris," he would say with a small, hopeful smile, "can you show me how an MRI works? How does chemo target the cancer cells?" Dr. Harris, moved by the boy's relentless spirit, answered each query with patience and care. "You're going to make one heck of a doctor someday," he assured him, though his eyes betrayed a sorrowful knowledge that the future was uncertain. The diagnosis set in motion a battle that would stretch the limits of courage and endurance. Ethan faced each day with a blend of curiosity and resilience. His notebook, now marked with new notes about treatments and scientific facts, became both his refuge and his challenge. Each page filled with dreams mingled with the harsh reality of his condition. In the quiet solitude of the hospital room, he continued to scribble his plans and hopes, clinging to the belief that even in the darkest of times, there was a spark of light waiting to ignite. Rebecca, meanwhile, juggled her professional expertise and maternal love with admirable strength. She spent long hours by Ethan's side, soothing his fears and reading to him from old textbooks on medicine. Each shared moment was a silent vow, a promise that no matter how treacherous the road ahead, they would face it together. Yet, behind her brave smiles lay an unspoken terror, the fear that the boy whose heart was so determined to heal might soon find himself fighting a battle he was not meant to win. As the days turned into weeks, the hospital became both a battleground and a sanctuary. Every test result, every whispered word between doctors, carried the weight of hope and despair. And in the midst of it all, Ethan's soft-spoken question during his rounds became a beacon of courage. "How do we fight it?" His words, though simple, echoed in the sterile corridors, a call to arms against a merciless disease. In that quiet room, where hope and heartbreak intertwined, Ethan's diagnosis was not just a sentence but a beginning. A beginning of a battle that would test his spirit, challenge his dreams, and ultimately shape a legacy that no one could ever forget. In the days that followed the diagnosis, the hospital room, once a sterile space of clinical procedures, transformed into a makeshift classroom. Despite the beeping monitors and the persistent hum of machines, Ethan was determined that his education would not be halted by his illness. Every spare moment became an opportunity to learn. Medical books replaced his usual storybooks, and every page turned was a small act of rebellion against the fate that threatened to overshadow his future. Even as the side effects of chemotherapy took their toll, nausea, fatigue, and the loss of his once lustrous hair, Ethan's hunger for knowledge never waned. With trembling fingers, he scribbled notes on scraps of paper, fascinated by the intricacies of the human body. His notebook, already filled with dreams of becoming a doctor, now overflowed with diagrams of cells, detailed observations about the treatments, and a growing curiosity about the miracles of modern medicine. One evening, as dusk settled outside the hospital window, Ethan's eyes flickered to a documentary playing softly on the television in the corner of his room. The film explored the process and significance of organ donation, a topic that, until then, he had only read about in textbooks. As he watched, a quiet determination began to take root in his heart. Turning to his mother, he asked in a soft, tentative voice, "Mom, if I can't be a doctor in life, can I still help people another way?" Rebecca's breath caught in her throat. The idea was both heartbreaking and heroic. "What do you mean, honey?" she managed, her voice trembling with emotion. Ethan's eyes shone with the clarity of someone who understood that his battle might not be won by medicine alone. "If I don't make it," he whispered, "maybe my body can still give life to others through organ donation. I want to help, even if I can't be the doctor I dreamed of." The room fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. Rebecca's heart ached at the thought of losing her son, yet she recognized the profound wisdom in his simple, earnest question. In that moment, Ethan taught everyone in that room a lesson far greater than any medical textbook could offer, that the true spirit of healing transcends one's own survival, and that sometimes, sacrifice is the highest form of love. In the following days, while doctors and nurses busied themselves with treatment plans and hopeful interventions, a quiet conversation began among the staff. Ethan's insistent desire to help, even if it meant giving up his own life, ignited a spark of admiration and deep respect among those who cared for him. Dr. Harris, who had grown fond of Ethan's inquisitive nature, remarked softly during rounds, "This boy's courage and selflessness remind us all what it means to truly care." Rebecca transformed Ethan's room into a sanctuary of learning. She brought in stacks of medical journals, old textbooks, and even arranged for guest speakers, retired doctors and nurses, to visit him when possible. With each lesson, Ethan's spirits soared higher, his questions growing ever more insightful as he delved into the mysteries of the human body. His determination was a beacon, not just for himself, but for everyone who witnessed his unwavering resolve in the face of adversity. As the days melted into weeks, Ethan began to understand that his journey was teaching him something vital, a lesson about the interconnectedness of life and the beauty of giving. Even as his body grew frail, his mind and heart expanded, embracing the idea that one's value was not measured solely by longevity, but by the love and hope one imparted to the world. In every whispered word and every soft-spoken question, Ethan's legacy of compassion was being written, a legacy that would soon extend far beyond the walls of his hospital room. Within the sterile corridors of the hospital, where hope and sorrow danced side by side, news of Ethan's heartfelt wish began to ripple outward. The idea that a child, even as his body battled a ruthless disease, would choose to help others in death stirred something deep in everyone who heard it. Doctors, nurses, and support staff gathered in hushed groups, discussing Ethan's plea as if it were a sacred trust. Dr. Harris, who had long admired Ethan's tenacity, found himself moved to tears on more than one occasion. "I've met many patients," he confided to a colleague in a quiet corner of the nurses' station, "but never one with such a pure, unselfish vision. He wants his body, even in death, to be a source of life for others." His words resonated among the team, inspiring an overwhelming sense of duty and honor. Rebecca, ever the pillar of strength despite the heartbreak she bore, stood by Ethan with unwavering resolve. Night after night, she whispered words of encouragement into his ear. "You are already the greatest healer I know," she would say, her voice a gentle promise amid the hum of machines. Ethan's face, though pale and frail, glowed with an inner light as he listened. His notebook, the repository of his dreams, now bore an additional promise: "If I cannot save lives as a doctor, let my life save them another way." As his condition declined further, Ethan's request became a subject of deep conversation among the hospital staff. Meetings were held, consultations arranged, and a unanimous decision was reached. Ethan's organs would be donated, ensuring that even if his young life was cut short, its legacy would extend to others who needed a second chance. This decision, though heavy with sorrow, was imbued with hope, a tribute to a boy whose soul shone with the brilliance of 1,000 lives. The local community soon learned of Ethan's noble wish. Neighbors, former patients, and even strangers sent letters of admiration and gratitude to the hospital. Each message was a testament to the profound impact of one child's resolve. One letter read, "Your son has taught us that true heroism lies not in the length of our days, but in the love we leave behind." Such words reverberated throughout the hospital halls, elevating Ethan's wish from a personal sacrifice to a collective beacon of inspiration. In quiet moments during long nights, as the rain pattered softly against the hospital windows, Rebecca would gaze at Ethan's face and marvel at his capacity for love and generosity. His decision, to allow his body to become a source of life for others, was perhaps the bravest act he could ever undertake. It was a choice that transformed despair into hope, loss into legacy, and a personal tragedy into a triumph of the human spirit. That night, as Ethan rested in his bed, the murmurs of the hospital staff were filled with reverence. Each nurse and doctor who passed by paused for a moment, silently saluting the brave boy. In their hearts, they carried the belief that Ethan's selfless wish was a call to be better, to care more deeply, and to honor the sanctity of life in every small act of kindness. And so, amid the soft beeps of monitors and the quiet rustle of sheets, Ethan's heroic choice was etched into the fabric of every soul who had witnessed it. The day arrived with a stillness that belied the storm of emotion swirling in every heart at the hospital. The corridors, usually abuzz with hurried footsteps and quiet chatter, were hushed in anticipation. Inside Ethan's room, bathed in the soft light of an overcast sky, Rebecca cradled her son's fragile hand. The air was heavy with both sorrow and a profound sense of purpose. Ethan's eyes, though dimmed by the ravages of his illness, shone with an inner radiance, a calm acceptance mingled with a spark of hope. "Mom," he whispered, his voice barely audible yet filled with a resolute tenderness, "do you think we did all we could?" His question hung in the air like a fragile prayer, laden with years of dreams and moments of shared joy. Rebecca's eyes welled with tears as she pressed his hand gently. "We did more than all anyone could," she murmured, her voice trembling with both grief and pride. As the clock ticked inexorably toward that final moment, the hospital staff gathered outside his room. Doctors, nurses, and even the quiet custodians of the building had come to pay homage to a boy who had taught them the true meaning of selflessness. In the sterile corridor, a profound silence settled, a moment suspended in time as they prepared to honor Ethan in a way that would echo long after he was gone. Ethan's breathing grew shallow, each exhalation a silent farewell to a world he had dreamed of healing. With a small, brave smile, he looked up at the ceiling, as if envisioning a future where his sacrifice would spark endless hope. "Mom, we did good, right?" he managed, the words laced with both wonder and quiet finality. Rebecca's response was immediate and tender. "Yes, my darling, we did good." In that poignant instant, as Ethan's eyes closed for the final time, the world outside seemed to pause. The rhythmic beeps of machines slowed, and a hushed reverence swept through the corridor. When Ethan's body was gently wheeled out of the room, every doctor and nurse, standing in solemn respect, bowed their heads in unison, a silent tribute to the life that had given so much even in its final moments. That symbolic gesture became a cherished memory in the annals of the hospital. The story of a little boy who chose to offer his life as a final gift resonated deeply with everyone who had witnessed it. In every whispered recollection and every tear shed, Ethan's spirit lived on, a spirit defined not by the brevity of life, but by the infinite capacity to heal, inspire, and transform sorrow into hope. The final gift was not just the organs that would go on to save lives. It was the lesson that true heroism is measured in the courage to love unconditionally, even when facing the end. And in that hallowed moment, as the hospital's corridors echoed with quiet reverence, Ethan Lawson's legacy began its journey beyond the walls of the ward, a legacy that would touch countless hearts in the years to come. In a sunlit recovery room at a renowned children's hospital, the legacy of Ethan Lawson began to take tangible form. The first to receive the gift of life was little Lily, a spirited 5-year-old whose heart had long struggled under the weight of a congenital defect. Before the transplant, Lily's days were spent in quiet isolation, her laughter stifled by the constant battle to keep pace with life. But on the day of the surgery, as the medical team prepared for an operation that many hoped would be her salvation, there was a palpable sense of reverence in the air. Dr. Mason, a seasoned pediatric surgeon with a gentle demeanor, recalled the moment vividly. "When we saw that donor profile, we knew this was a miracle waiting to happen," he said softly to the assembled team. The donor, a young boy with dreams and a heart full of promise, had given more than his life. He had given hope. In the operating room, as Dr. Mason carefully connected the transplanted heart, every member of the team felt the weight of that promise. Each beat of the new heart was a silent reminder of Ethan's sacrifice, a heartbeat that resonated with the echoes of a little boy's dream to heal. Lily's surgery was a success. In the days that followed, the tiny patient began to regain strength. With each cautious step she took down the hospital corridor, the memory of Ethan's selfless gift grew stronger. Her parents, overwhelmed with gratitude, often whispered that every smile on Lily's face was a tribute to a little boy who had given his heart so that she might live a fuller life. In quiet conversations in the recovery room, nurses spoke of Ethan's legacy with hushed awe, each story a thread in the tapestry of a miracle that had touched so many lives. As Lily's health improved, so did the hope that had been reignited in her family's eyes. The hospital organized a small ceremony where Dr. Mason presented Lily's parents with a framed photograph of Ethan, an enduring symbol of the love and generosity that had made her recovery possible. In that tender moment, the story of Ethan's sacrifice was no longer just a memory. It had become a living legacy that breathed life into every heart it touched. In every beat of Lily's new heart, there was a promise that one small act of love could ripple outwards, transforming pain into possibility. As Lily began to play in the hospital's garden, her laughter mingled with the whispers of gratitude from the staff. Ethan's heart had not only given her the chance to run and play again, it had kindled a flame of hope that would continue to inspire everyone who encountered it. And so, in that sunlit corner of the world, the legacy of a little boy's courage and compassion grew ever brighter. Not far from the children's ward, in a quiet recovery suite, another life was being transformed by Ethan's generous gift. This time, it was the life of Maria Delgado, a woman who had battled kidney failure for years, her hope dwindling with each passing day. Maria's journey had been long and arduous, punctuated by despair and the constant uncertainty of tomorrow. But when the news came that a donor had been found, a spark of hope was reignited in her heart. The transplant surgery, led by Dr. Rivera, a skilled and empathetic nephrologist, was a complex procedure, requiring not only surgical precision but also a deep well of compassion. As the medical team worked meticulously, Dr. Rivera recalled how the donor profile had been clear, a young boy whose life, though tragically brief, had been marked by an unwavering desire to help others. "We weren't just performing a transplant," he later said. "We were honoring a promise that life, in all its fragility, is infinitely precious." Maria's surgery proceeded smoothly, and in the following days, her recovery was marked by small victories, a regained appetite, a steady pulse, and moments of quiet joy as she began to feel like herself again. Each time she smiled, it was as if she was whispering a silent thank you to the boy who had given her this second chance. Her family, overwhelmed with gratitude, marveled at the beauty of this unexpected miracle. They would often say that every moment of hope in their lives was thanks to a selfless act of love, a reminder that even in the darkest times, light could be found. In the gentle rhythm of her new life, Maria found the strength to return to her daily routines, slowly rebuilding the life that had once seemed irretrievably lost. At a follow-up visit, when asked how she felt about the transplant, she simply replied, "It's as if a part of someone's heart continues to beat inside me, a heartbeat that reminds me every day to cherish life." In that statement, Maria encapsulated the profound impact of Ethan's gift. It was more than just a medical procedure, it was a living testament to the power of compassion and sacrifice. In the days that followed, letters of gratitude poured into the hospital for Maria and others touched by this miracle. Each letter recounted a personal story of hope, healing, and the transformative power of one small act of courage. The legacy of Ethan's choice was no longer confined to a hospital room. It had blossomed into a ripple that touched countless lives, reaffirming the belief that sometimes, even the briefest of lives can shine the brightest. While Lily and Maria's stories soared with the promise of renewed hope, another recipient was quietly embracing a second chance at life. This was the story of David Morgan, a devoted father whose once ailing liver had left him struggling to care for his family. David's condition had slowly eroded his strength, robbing him of the ability to play with his children or share in the simple pleasures of daily life. His future, once full of promise, had grown uncertain, shadowed by the relentless advance of illness. When news reached the hospital that a donor had been found, David's heart, both literal and metaphorical, stirred with the possibility of recovery. Under the skilled hands of Dr. Kim, a renowned transplant surgeon with a reputation for precision and empathy, the liver transplant was performed in an atmosphere heavy with cautious optimism. Every surgical step was taken with care, each movement a prayer for David's future. Dr. Kim often recalled the significance of the donor, a young boy whose untimely death was transformed into a lifeline for a man who had once struggled to keep his family together. "This is more than a transplant," he explained to his team. "It's a legacy of hope that carries forward the dreams of a brave little soul." In the days after the surgery, David's recovery was slow but steady. With each passing hour, his strength gradually returned, and the warmth of life began to seep back into his eyes. His children, who had once watched in worried silence, now found reason to laugh again as their father regained his vigor. In quiet moments shared with his wife, David would reflect on the miraculous gift that had given him a second chance. "I feel as though a part of that boy's spirit lives in me," he would say softly, a testament to a life that had transcended its own brevity to restore another. As David resumed his everyday activities, the hospital organized a small gathering for his family, a celebration of life and resilience. Amid flowers and gentle music, a framed photograph of Ethan was displayed, a silent tribute to the boy who had given so much without a single complaint. In that heartwarming moment, as laughter mingled with tears, David's renewed hope resonated with everyone present. His journey of rebuilding was not just about recovering his own health, but about nurturing the dreams of a family and a community that had learned to see beauty in the unlikeliest of miracles. David's story, intertwined with Ethan's selfless act, became a cherished narrative in the community, a constant reminder that life, when given a second chance, could be rebuilt with love, perseverance, and an enduring faith in the human spirit. In a sun-dappled room at a specialized eye care center, another chapter in Ethan's legacy was unfolding, a chapter defined by the gift of sight. Young Oliver, a lively 8-year-old with an insatiable curiosity about the world, had been battling severe vision impairment since birth. His world, once filled with the mystery of shadows and light, had been shrouded in perpetual darkness. But when doctors discovered that Ethan's corneas were a perfect match, a miracle began to take shape. The delicate surgery, overseen by Dr. Patel, a compassionate ophthalmologist known for her gentle touch, was a blend of cutting-edge technology and heartfelt hope. Every meticulous movement in the operating room was infused with the belief that Oliver's life was about to be transformed. "Today," Dr. Patel later said, "we are not merely transplanting tissue, we are returning a world of color and wonder to a child who has long been deprived of it." And indeed, as Oliver slowly opened his eyes after the procedure, the first rays of natural light unveiled a vibrant panorama he had never seen before. The colors of a blooming garden, the gentle hues of a sunset, and even the intricate patterns on a butterfly's wings, each detail was a revelation, a testament to the boy's newfound vision. As Oliver began to adjust to his restored sight, his joy was infectious. His parents, who had often wept in the dark of night over the thought of a life lived without color, embraced him with tears of joy. Every day, Oliver would excitedly describe the world around him, his words painting vivid images that filled the hearts of everyone who listened. In a small celebration organized by the hospital, Dr. Patel presented Oliver with a pair of custom-made glasses, a symbolic gesture of clarity and hope. In that moment, the story of Ethan's sacrifice took on a new dimension. It was no longer just about life saved, but about a life enriched by beauty. The news of Oliver's transformation spread quickly throughout the community. Schools, local media, and neighbors spoke of the miracle that had restored a child's vision, a miracle that was rooted in the selfless love of a boy who had once dreamed of becoming a healer. In every smile, every bright-eyed gaze at the world, Ethan's legacy was affirmed. Oliver's journey from darkness to light became a living reminder that even the simplest gifts, like the ability to see, could illuminate the soul and transform an entire life. For Oliver and his family, the gift of sight was not merely a medical success. It was a promise fulfilled, a promise that life's beauty, in all its vivid hues, was meant to be experienced by every heart. And so, as Oliver's laughter filled the air in his new school and in his home, the memory of Ethan Lawson shone brightly, a beacon of hope that would forever guide those who believed in the extraordinary power of compassion.
The legacy of Ethan Lawson's extraordinary gift rippled far beyond individual lives.
In community centers, hospitals, and even in the quiet corners of local cafes, whispers of the little boy who had given everything in the name of hope grew into a resounding call for kindness. Letters of gratitude poured in from every corner of the city, from families whose lives had been transformed by organ transplants to local leaders inspired by the story of a selfless child. At a town hall meeting organized by the hospital, community members gathered to honor Ethan's memory. The room buzzed with emotion as speakers recounted how his organ donations had sparked not only physical recoveries, but also a renewed sense of community. "Ethan taught us that the true measure of life is not in its length, but in its impact," said one elderly man, his voice thick with emotion. His words resonated with everyone present, reinforcing the belief that even the briefest lives could create everlasting change. Local media picked up the story, and soon, news outlets and social networks were abuzz with tribute videos, art installations, and community fundraisers dedicated to supporting organ donation programs. The hospital established a small memorial garden in honor of Ethan, a tranquil space where families could sit, reflect, and remember that every act of kindness could have a profound ripple effect. For Rebecca, the transformation was deeply personal. Each time she received a letter or a call from someone whose life had been saved, she felt a bittersweet mix of sorrow and pride. Though she had lost her beloved son far too soon, she found solace in knowing that Ethan's life continued to bloom in the hearts of those he had unknowingly healed. In quiet moments, when the hospital corridors fell silent, she would gaze at a small framed photo of Ethan and murmur, "You are here, my love, in every life you've touched." The ripple effect extended into local schools, where teachers began incorporating Ethan's story into lessons on compassion, resilience, and the power of selfless giving. Students, inspired by the narrative of a little boy who had faced unimaginable hardship with grace and determination, organized charity drives and awareness campaigns, ensuring that his legacy would never fade. In that vibrant network of gratitude, hope, and transformation, Ethan's spirit lived on, a reminder that even one small act of courage could ignite a chain reaction of love and healing across an entire community. Years passed, and while the hospital corridors still bore the marks of Ethan's brief but brilliant presence, his legacy had grown into a living testament to hope. A modest plaque near the nurse's station read, "In memory of Ethan Lawson, a young soul whose sacrifice brought life to many." For the families whose lives had been forever changed by his gift, his story was recounted with reverence at every gathering, every anniversary of the day he left this world. Local medical schools began teaching courses on organ donation and ethical care, using Ethan's story as a case study in courage and selflessness. Aspiring doctors and nurses found in his memory an unwavering beacon of inspiration, reminding them that healing was as much about compassion as it was about clinical skill. Rebecca, though scarred by the loss of her son, continued to work at the hospital with a renewed passion. Each patient she cared for was a living reminder of Ethan's dream, and she dedicated herself to ensuring that his legacy of empathy and hope was passed on to future generations. Community events were organized in Ethan's honor, a charity run, an annual day of life celebration, and even a scholarship in his name to support young students aspiring to enter the medical field. As local leaders spoke about the transformative power of his gift, they emphasized that Ethan's life had shown the world that even in the face of tragedy, love and sacrifice could bloom into a legacy of boundless impact. In quiet moments, when the hospital's night shift was at its calmest, staff would gather for a brief moment of remembrance. They recalled the day when every doctor and nurse bowed their heads as Ethan's body was carried out, a silent tribute that spoke louder than words. That bow became a symbol of honor, a gesture of humility and gratitude for a life so brief yet so extraordinarily meaningful. And so, as the years turned into decades, the story of Ethan Lawson endured, a tale passed down through whispered memories, written tributes, and the countless lives that had been saved by his gift. His dream to heal, once scribbled in a small notebook with stickers and heartfelt promises, had transcended his own fate. Ethan's legacy was not confined to the pages of that notebook. It had become an eternal testament to the power of a compassionate heart. In every heartbeat, every smile, every new dawn in the lives he touched, Ethan's spirit lived on, a gentle reminder that one life, no matter how brief, could change the world in ways that echoed far beyond time. Ethan Lawson's story may have begun with a simple dream scribbled in a notebook, but it blossomed into a legacy that transcends the boundaries of life and death. His sacrifice, born from the purest desire to help others, has become a beacon of hope, a living reminder that every act of compassion can create ripples that endure through time. In the quiet halls of the hospital, every heartbeat and every smile is a tribute to the selfless courage of a young boy. His organs now continue to nurture life, giving second chances to those who once teetered on the edge of despair. Lily's laughter, Maria's renewed vigor, David's restored strength, and Oliver's awakened wonder all echo Ethan's timeless message, that life is precious and every moment holds the potential for healing. Beyond the immediate miracles of medicine, Ethan's story has inspired an entire community to embrace kindness, resilience, and the profound impact of giving. His memory is interwoven in community celebrations, educational programs, and in the daily lives of those who choose to believe that love and sacrifice can indeed change the world. The legacy he left behind serves as a call to action, to cherish every moment, to extend a helping hand to those in need, and to remember that even the briefest life can illuminate the darkness. In every whispered story, every letter of gratitude, and every tear of remembrance, Ethan's spirit lives on, a spirit that teaches us that true heroism is not measured by the length of our days, but by the depth of our love and the impact we have on others. His journey reminds us that hope can bloom in the most unexpected places and that every act of selflessness carries within it the power to heal not just a body, but an entire community. Thus, while Ethan Lawson's earthly presence may have been fleeting, his legacy endures, inspiring generations to come with the eternal promise that even in our darkest hours, love remains the most powerful medicine of all. Thank you for watching until the end. If Ethan's story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below to share your thoughts. Your support helps us continue bringing powerful and inspiring stories to life. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new video. And remember, every act of kindness, no matter how small, can change someone's life. See you in the next story.